Hi, this is Tom Robbins, president and founder of Work Zone Safe. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can be safe in a work zone. Whether you're a driver, pedestrian, you're walking, you're on a bike, however you're moving, we need to discuss some of the things that you can do to keep yourself and other people safe. So as we teach you to be confident, capable in work zones, let's start off with the why. Why do we care about safety in these areas? What are we seeing in the numbers that are telling us that we need to be vigilant and pay attention? Well, first, what we know is that pedestrian deaths are at an all-time high. In fact, this last year, U.S. pedestrian deaths were at their highest recorded level in a 40-year history. A lot of that has to do, quite frankly, with something that I refer to as digitally drunk behavior, driving or walking or being on a bike or however mode of transportation that are using. All of us are focused on technology and our phones, and it's hard to put those down. Unfortunately, when we don't do those in situations like work zones, no matter our mode of transportation, we're seeing a lot of crashes, a lot of injuries, and unfortunately, a lot of fatalities. In fact, in 2022, there was 7,837 pedestrians killed. This has increased by over 77% between 2010 and 2021. So just in a decade, we've seen a 70% increase in the amount of people on the pedestrian side being killed. And unfortunately, this is spilling over into the roadway as well when it comes to drivers or motorists or passengers. 2021 was the most deadliest year in modern transportation history when it comes to being behind the wheel. Well, why is that happening? Again, it's because of people's behavior. We have safer cars and safer features. We also have better designed roads. Unfortunately, it's the people using those roads, either as a pedestrian or as a motorist, that aren't putting safety as their number one priority. So that's the why behind there. And then when you get into the work zone, it gets even more precarious. Did you know that in the state of Oklahoma, over 70 Oklahoma Department of Transportation employees have been killed in a work zone? That's right. In fact, if you're ever down by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation in Oklahoma City's headquarters, right south of the state capitol, you'll see a memorial there recognizing those employees who've been killed. Think about that for a second. What if wherever you worked had to have a memorial because so many of your coworkers were injured all because all they did was go and do their job? So what are the things that we can focus on as a pedestrian or as a motorist that are going to be able to keep us safe? Well, like I said, the number one thing that we can focus on definitely is eliminating distractions. When you're in a work zone, there's a little catchy thing that I hope I'm going to put into your mind that you'll never, ever forget again. Whether you're a pedestrian or a motorist, what I want you to remember is eyes up, phone down, buckle up, slow down. So eyes up, give that work zone your full attention, because if not, there could be some very serious consequences. Phone down, we're all connected to our mobile devices. If you're a pedestrian, take out your earbuds. If you're a driver, put down your phone. Some other things that you can do is have the passenger respond if there's a text or an update needed to your Spotify playlist. Or another thing that you can do, which is super easy, is plan out your route in advance. Take a look and set on your phone, if you're in the car, where you're going to go. Or if you're a pedestrian and walking, before you start on your journey, make sure you know what kind of hazards are out there, including work zones. Those are always changing and they're populating. And guess what? Work zones where you live are populating all across the country, all across every single city that you're going to be traveling in as a pedestrian or as a motorist. We're going to see an increased amount of work zones over the next 5 years. That's because of the federal dollars that are coming, matched with state and local, county and city funding that are happening in order to create safer roadways. Well, before, how those roadways can be created means that there's going to be work zones. So we're going to see more and more work zones, not less. And did you know that crashes are a leading cause of teens and young adults ages 16 to 24? They claimed over 6,900 lives in 2021. That's huge. How big is this distracted problem for when it comes to driving? Well, in 2021, 3,522 people were killed in crashes involving a distracted driver. Now think about that. And here's an eye-popping stat. In 2021, 362,415 people were injured in a motor vehicle crash involving a distracted driver. That's right. Look, hopefully you don't drink and drive. And hopefully you know that there are serious consequences that come from a DUI or being under the influence and getting behind the wheel. But it's just as important that you're not a distracted driver. And it's just as important that you're not a digitally drunk driver or a digitally drunk pedestrian. When we're exhibiting those types of behaviors, we're putting the lives of others and ourselves at risk. So the number one thing that you can do is focus on distractions. It's going to make you a safer driver, a better passenger, somebody better to be on the road with. Unfortunately, when we hear from our construction workers, what they're seeing is that drivers and pedestrians aren't seeing. You never want to play hide and go seek with a Department of Transportation worker or contractor. Why? Because they want to be seen. They're wearing neon and reflective colors, lights and signs. They're doing everything they can to tell you that they're in a work zone. But that means that they need your attention. So what else can we do as a pedestrian or riding on our bike or being on the roadway? Number one thing that you can do to keep yourself safe in a work zone is to buckle your seatbelt. 51% of teen drivers who died in 2021 were unbuckled. Seatbelts save lives, end of story, period. According to NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the safest choice you can absolutely make is to buckle up. And guess what? What can you do to avoid injury when you're on a bike or you're on an electric powered vehicle? The exact same thing. If you're in an electric powered vehicle and it has a seatbelt, buckle up. If you're on a scooter or other device, guess what? Including being on a bike, the number one thing you can do is put on your helmet. Look, I get it. Seatbelts can be uncomfortable, even maybe annoying. You might even forget. So can a helmet. Maybe it's itchy, a little bit scratchy. It doesn't fit quite as well. You get a little bit sweaty. But the number one thing that you can do to protect your life and save yourself from bodily harm and injury is having that seatbelt on or having that helmet on. One of the things that you can do as a safety advocate and friend of transportation safety is not just doing yourself, but being a positive influence to your peer. Research shows and tells us that peers respond to their fellow peers. That means if you're in a car and somebody is doing something that's dangerous, like being distracted or not wearing their seatbelt, you just saying, hey, could you put a seatbelt on? Or, hey, could we do that before we start driving if it comes to distraction or a text is the most powerful thing that you can do. Additionally, what you can do is be that peer pressure support for inviting your friend to be able to put on a helmet. And here's the thing. A lot of times people buy a helmet, but they fail to fit it properly. Take the time to go to sources such as nhtsa.gov/road safety/bicycle safety to get fitted for a bike helmet. Or go to those same resources to figure out how to best wear your seatbelt. Because if you're doing it right, it's going to absolutely keep you safe. So what are some other things that you can do? Well, speeding. Did you know that it doesn't mean that you're just going at a high rate of speed? You can actually be speeding at a low rate if you're traveling at a higher rate of speed than what's posted, or you're going too fast for the conditions of the road. Look, when you're in a work zone, you need to be focused, but you also need to slow down. Remember what we talked about. Eyes up, phone down, buckle up, slow down. That's how your work zone's safe. Well, road workers need you to slow down. We've had over 117 road workers that were killed in 2020 because people are failing to slow down. They're failing to recognize that their number one responsibility is the safety of those workers, themselves, and their passengers. Did you know that, again, according to NHTSA, in 2021, 12,330 moms, dads, and siblings, neighbors, and friends were killed all because of speeding? because somebody was in a hurry, somebody wanted to get to their destination, meant that somebody else couldn't get to their destination home. And think about that for a second, the impact that can have. Now, it only takes an extra 25 seconds to cover 1 mile at 45 miles an hour compared to 65 miles an hour. So you're not making up a lot of distance, but what you are doing is you're increasing the risk factor. And when you increase the risk factor in a work zone, that's what's going to cause an increase of crashes and fatalities. So think about that for a second when you're trying to keep yourself or your passenger, loved ones, or those that you share the road with safe. Now, as I talk to you about what you can do from an example of bicycle safety, let's go into some specific tips. Number one is make sure that bike fits you. This is so important when you're in a work zone, because if your hands or feet are slipping, if you're not comfortable, you're going to be distracted. And ride a bike that actually works. It doesn't matter if, well, you're on a bike but the brakes don't work or your reflectors aren't on. You need to have something, and that means that before you hop on that bike, do a quick check to make sure all the things that are keeping you safe are in place. Now look, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, like we talked about with the bike helmet, but there's other things that you can and need to do to keep yourself safe in a work zone. Just like our construction workers are wearing bright clothing, reflective clothing, that are able to pick up on that light and reflect it back to let them know that you're there. When you're a pedestrian or you're a motorist or you're just on a bike, what we need you to do is follow that example as well. Bright clothing, reflective clothing. Again, your goal is to be safe, and one of the best ways that you can do that is to be able to be seen. Make sure you're only riding one per seat. You got both hands on the handlebars, and unless you're signaling to turn, that you're focused with both those hands. Carry all your items. In the construction industry, we have something called secure your load. That means before you load up, say, a truck or another piece of heavy equipment, that operator is going to make sure that that road is secure, or that is secure. We're going to ask you to do that as well for your bike. So that way, when you're traveling, there aren't things that are spilling over, that are coming off, that are creating a hazard for other people that you're sharing the road with. And here's a thing that we can all do together. Whether you are in a car, whether you're on a bike, whether you're on an electric scooter or any other mode of transportation, plan your route. Work zones are always going to change. They're going to be mobile. They're going to be at night. They're going to be during the day. There's multiple signs and things that you need to pay attention to. The best thing you can do is plan your route in advance. Looking and seeing where and when construction is going to be happening, what delays you might anticipate, and alternative routes that are available that you can be able to take safely. When you make those decisions and pre-plan in advance, it just takes a couple of minutes, but those minutes can literally prevent a crash, an injury, or save your life. So be focused and alert. Don't assume that other people, particularly in a work zone, when we have so many digitally drunk drivers that are out there and pedestrians, don't assume that they can see you. Make eye contact. For example, when you're in a work zone, you can see a flagger. A flagger is somebody who is directing traffic, who has the exact same authority as a control device telling you where and when to go and to be able to stop. Well, that person is trying to get your attention with the sign that they're holding, with the flashing lights, with the clothes that they're wearing. The best thing you can do as a motorist or as a pedestrian is make eye contact with that individual. Because when you do that, they know that they see you, and you see them. And so in doing so, you can pass through quickly and safely, which is our number one goal, safely. So remember, music is great. You're going to want to text, but those things need to be happening outside of the car, need to be happening outside of you walking in an active work zone. Anything that distracts you and that keeps your eyes or focus away from the road. Now, whenever possible, walk on the sidewalk. In a construction zone, you might have an alternative route that you're being asked to go on. Again, look for those signs and look for those flaggers, the people that are directing traffic, and make sure that you are paying attention. If not, it can have deadly consequences. Follow those rules of the road, including all the temporary traffic signs and signals. As you cross at a street or crosswalk, make sure that you wait, look both ways, and look again, but also wait for that signal to be able to flash. And stay alert. Avoid alcohol impairment. A lot of people think that if they're not in a car, it doesn't matter if they're impaired. But as a pedestrian, it absolutely does as well. So make sure you're being safe when you're traveling, because when you're out there on the road, you need to be able to be aware and not impaired. So watch for those cars, and when you have younger people around you, make sure that you're helping them know what they need to do to be able to be safe. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening in our work zones. There's a lot of things to be able to pay attention to from a perspective of somebody who is traveling in a different environment like a work zone. The reason, again, that we ask you to do this is because, quite frankly, too many people, a record amount, are being injured and killed in our work zones. So let's sum that up a little bit about real people, real faces. So again, as I said, over 70, in fact, 72 Oklahoma Department of Transportation, Oklahoma Turnpike Authority employees have been killed in a work zone. In the past 5 years, 91 people in the state of Oklahoma, including an ODOT, or an Oklahoma Department of Transportation worker, was killed. But get this, over 1,455 people were injured, and more than 8,000 collisions involving Oklahoma work zones. Preliminary figures that we have from 2021, from January to September, show us that 20 people were killed. So it has a huge impact, pedestrian, motorists, and otherwise, of having conflicts in a work zone. So what can you do? Let's review it again. Hopefully it never leaves your mind. In a work zone, regardless of your mode of transportation, remember, eyes up, phone down. If you have it, buckle up, slow down. That's how you become work zone safe. Again, putting away those distractions, making sure your helmet fits, making sure that you have a secure seatbelt. Pre-trip planning, and then following the signs, figuring out the alternative routes. If there's a flagger or a signal device that's temporary or anything in nature, make sure that you're paying attention. If it's a person, make eye contact. Look, Oklahoma, we're going in the wrong direction, as is the entire nation. But when it comes to transportation safety, we always want to go the right direction. Each of us need to do our part, and not only do our part, but be that positive peer influence. Reach out and just be the person that says that little small something that reminds people to have their eyes up, phone down, buckle up, or slow down. For more tips, information, statistics on how your passengers can be safe in a car, as a pedestrian, on a bike, how and where you're traveling, make sure you check out WorkZoneSafe.com. I'm Tom Robbins, founder and president of WorkZone Safe. Thanks for spending the time so that you can be a safe and confident pedestrian driver in the work zone.